Welcome everybody to my storytelling channel. It is a beautiful day outside here in the East Coast. I hope that you are all doing well. Today I am going to be finishing off the story of Saccharine. This is written in dedication to Ka Bao Moua. I hope that you have been enjoying the story. Please subscribe if you have not. This story is intended for mature audiences, for adult language, adult situations, and adult content. Enjoy.
I did a lot of bad things, and never did I give in. Just 'cause the thought of being vulnerable made me feel less than I am. I have never felt home till you entered my door.
I remained silent. I wasn't sure to believe him or keep on believing the story Naomi fed me. He rolled up his sleeves and showed up his muscled forearms. He ran a hand through his hair and then locked his eyes with me. Do you believe her? Is that why you're acting the way you do? He asked gently. I don't know what to believe, I finally said. You're standing on the opposite side of the story. Why don't you tell me? I'm sure I look like a prick to you right now. I'm sure what she said sounds realistic and that I'm an asshole. But to tell you the truth, if you'd rather believe her, some little bimbo who offered herself to me and got rejected, than me, the man who can make you shiver when I make love to you, then I have no words to say. I stood very still watching him as he continued watching me. And then I put the folders down and I realized he was right. I walked across the distance between us and threw my arms around him. When I felt his arms come around my waist, I felt the same comforting feeling I had before engulf me. He pulled away and tilted my chin up to look at him. Ka Bao, the truth is that I happen to see you as my fairy tale, and she's not ready to face the fact that she never was. Anyone who is jealous or wants revenge will say just about anything to get her point across. The question is if you believe her or not. If you do choose to believe her, she's won and is probably celebrating her victory in glory. If you don't, she realizes she's fighting an empty war. I touched his face. I'm sorry. I guess a part of me is very vulnerable. I believed everything that was said to me. I'm still afraid of this. Listen, unless I say it, know that you're never going to leave my side. I let out a shaky breath and nodded. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Now, how about we forget all about this and I take you home where I can have my fill of you. My world had changed completely. I was in a place where I found warmth and safety to be first. I had never had that, and it was beginning to feel like home to me. Lincoln gave me everything I wanted without a moment's thought. I was content, something I hadn't been for a long time. I began my days with him and ended it with him. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized I was falling in love with him. He had this magic spell that wrapped around me until I felt I couldn't breathe. He changed my world and I was never going to be the same again. And then, one morning, something happened that changed everything. It was a morning just like every other morning. I woke up, showered, and dressed for work. Lincoln hadn't spent the night with me and I was feeling anxious to see him. I chose a bright red two-piece dress suit, wove my hair into a low bun, and applied minimum makeup. When I arrived at work, Glenda was on the phone and waved to me. I heard Maverick talking in his office as I walked into Lincoln's office to say hello. The door was closed, but I knocked gently, and then I opened. On the ground was Lincoln, half naked, with only his pants on, and Naomi in nothing but a silk wrap around her naked body. Her hair was a mess, a I just got fucked look, and her makeup was smeared. Lincoln was asleep, and she was blushing as she stood up and stumbled over her heels. I stopped dead in my tracks and felt my heart race. This was the reason why he hadn't spent the night with me? Naomi stood up and smiled. Good morning, Ka Bao. As you can see, we're quite busy. Why don't you come back when we're better dressed? I felt the tears rush to my eyes and I ran out of there, slamming the door. I walked into my office, shutting the door, trying to catch my breath. All the good thoughts came crashing down against me and left me drowning. The image of Lincoln lying there half naked with her made me sick to my stomach. I felt as if I was being buried alive. How could I be so stupid? How could I let myself love him so fast, so soon? I gulped down tears and made my way to the couch where I sat with shaking legs. Before I knew it, tears came crashing over me, and I was gasping for air. It hurt to breathe, and it tore me apart. And once again, I had been ditched for another woman. Ka Bao! Lincoln's voice shouted from outside my door. I ignored it, and then I heard the sound of a key opening. It opened and he stepped in wearing a wrinkled shirt. He took one look at me, and his face turned dark. I stood up and wiped my eyes, not caring if I smudged my makeup. I took a deep, shaky breath as I straightened myself. Ka Bao, whatever you think you saw, it's not true, he said. I gulped down the pain and took a deep breath. Lincoln, please leave me alone. I'm at a point where I don't want to see you or talk to you. Just leave me alone, please. Please tell me you're smarter than that. Smarter? I should have been. I shouldn't have trusted you so fucking fast. Look at what it did to me. It has left me torn to pieces once again after I just picked up my life. He stepped forward and I moved away from him. He slammed the door and came to hold me. I fought him off and pushed him away. I turned around and slapped him hard across the face. The look of surprise entered his eyes, and I slapped him again. Get out of here! I don't ever want to see you again! He shook his head. You have to believe me when I say to you that what you saw isn't what you think. I laughed. Oh, really? The man I've been sleeping with is found half naked with his naked ex-girlfriend who looks like she has been fucked all night. How do you fucking explain that? Where were you last night? You chose to be with her instead of with me. I wasn't here last night. I woke up here this morning. Stop fucking lying. Go back to her and stop bothering me. It's done and I'm resigning. He grabbed my arm. No, you're not. I don't care if I have to drag you to the altar right now and marry you just to get you to stay with me, Ka Bao. You're not leaving me and you're not resigning. Marry you? Why on earth would I want to marry you after what I've seen? Because the eyes can be deceiving, Ka Bao. Look with your heart and you'll see the truth. I tore my hand from him. No, I know what I saw. I know what is real. I'm not going to let another man break me again. He smiled. As far as I know, I'm the only man who has broken you. You're mine, and you're not leaving me. I don't care what I have to do. I laughed. It's the 21st century, Lincoln. I have a choice to do what I please. I don't have to listen to you. I'm not going to cave in just so that you can have some sort of stupid pride. Get out of here. It's over. He leaned down and his eyes darkened. I'm not letting you go. I'll prove to you that what you saw was nothing but a scheme built by a jealous woman. Lincoln turned to go, and when he was out the door, I broke down and began to cry. How could I let my heart love him so? This was what happened to Alan. I let myself love too soon, and the hurt I was left with was too unbearable. Here I was, once again, lost and broken, except this time I was sure I would never recover.
Went down crashing in my own bed. There ain't no words when you're sleeping with shame. All out and yet still wide awake. There ain't no prayer when when you're sleeping on nails, and words fail you, and all that you can do is look away. Yeah, and the image in my mind is burning each other down. It's pain. If you could only say it's you, always you.
Throughout the day, I avoided and ignored Lincoln. At lunch, I ordered in and ate alone. I heard his feet shuffling to my door numerous times. He stood outside my door as if waiting to hear my gesture to come in. When I never spoke, and after moments of silence, he would turn to go. As soon as I heard his footsteps walk away, I began to cry. I was a mess, and I wasn't sure how I was going to make it through the day. At the end of the day, I had no energy left to argue or to feel. I was exhausted and beyond pained. The office was quiet as I made my way to the elevator. As I pressed the button waiting for the elevator to arrive on my floor, I felt a presence behind me. I turned around and found Lincoln standing behind. His eyes were dark and misty, his face rugged, and he looked a mess. He was still wearing the same clothes from the night before. Just seeing it on him made me feel sick. The elevator doors dinged, and I turned to go when he grabbed my arm and began leading me back to his office. "Let me go!" I cried. "No, not until you listen to me," he shouted. I tried to free myself, and when I did, I turned to go. He swung me around and hoisted me on his shoulder. I pounded my hands into his back as he carried me into his office and kicked the door closed. He dropped me on the couch and held my wrists together. "Stop it," he shouted. "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want you to see something." I was beyond angry as I pushed him away and stood up. "I don't care to see anything you have to show me. As far as I know, you and I don't exist anymore." He grabbed my shoulders and shook me lightly. "The hell we don't exist, Ka Bao. I was just beginning to enjoy myself with you. You're not going to leave me hanging." "Yeah? Well, you should have thought of that before you brought her in here." He slammed his lips against mine and kissed me hard. I bit his lip, yet he didn't stop. I pushed him away as hard as I could, and then he grabbed my face and shook his head. "God damn it! Will you just listen to me? Give me a chance here, Ka Bao. I'm trying to redeem myself, and you're not letting me speak." I began to cry. "You hurt me. After such poetic promises, you turned around and stabbed me in the back, just like Ellen." "I'm nothing like Ellen. For one, I was drugged and had no control of myself. Ellen did it out of his own purpose, whatever it may have been." My breathing almost stopped as I thought about what he had just said. My heart pace finally slowed down, and I glanced at him. His eyes were dark, and he looked like he'd been hit by a train. I pulled myself out of his hold as I stared at him. He let out a big sigh and walked to his desk. He turned back around to face me. He stood like that for a long time before he turned around. "It's all on tape," he said. He took a hold of his laptop, pressed a button, and turned it around. I walked over and watched as a black and white image of his office came up on the screen. I saw him sitting at his desk on the phone, and then he got up to answer the door when there was a knock. I saw him come back with Naomi trailing behind him. There were no sounds, but the actions between them told me he was fighting with her. After a few moments, she left in tears. He walked to the bathroom, and Naomi entered again. She dropped something in his cup of coffee and left. When he returned, he took a gulp of his coffee and gathered up his things. I saw him leave, and the video went still for several long hours. He fast-forwarded, and then I saw Naomi carry him in unconscious. She began to undress him. I slammed the laptop down and turned away. I had seen enough. "I woke up here," Lincoln said. "I have no idea what happened. She was here naked, just like you saw. Throughout the day, I couldn't believe that I would have done anything like that unless I was drugged. My office is equipped with cameras to make sure no one steals any of my ideas. I finally was smart enough to take a look at the video surveillance. Nothing happened. She undressed me, undressed herself, and slept beside me through the night. She wanted you to find me like that with her. She wanted to hurt you." I felt his fingers on my arm, and I shivered. And then he turned me around gently. I saw the hurt in his eyes. What had I done to him? I had refused to listen, had refused to give him a chance to explain. The sob came so fast, and it tore at me like a lion roaring at a prey. I put my arms around him and began to cry. He held me tightly and inhaled my scent. Ka Bao, I would never hurt you the way you think. Do you honestly think I'd give all this up when I've been searching for it my whole life? He asked. I'm sorry, I sobbed. When I walked in and saw you like that with her, my entire world came crashing down. I thought, why did I give so much of me when this was bound to happen? I hated myself for loving you. He pulled away and tucked a loose strand behind my ear. Ka Bao, don't think so low of yourself. It hurts me. I shook my head. I'm so sorry. He brushed my tears away with his fingers and shook his head. Don't apologize.
You're so wild, I'm not gonna fight it. Hypnotized, stuck inside my mind because you gotta be something undefined for me. You're so wild, I'm not gonna fight.
Making love was something I was new to. It was a way that opened up my soul in ways I never knew possible. It was pure, heartfelt, and real. That's what Lincoln did to me that night when we arrived at home. He took his time to know my body, taking each layer off with care, making sure he kissed every inch of skin he exposed. I was shivering from his kisses, almost exhausted at how he made me feel. He wasn't afraid to show me how much he wanted me to feel, and each time he had an orgasm, he made sure I watched him unravel. It was beautiful. Lying next to him as he slept beside me was perfect. I finally understood what he meant when he told me he wished morning would never come. Just seeing him beside me, breathing and perfect, made my life easier. Since he entered my life, it had been turned upside down, and I was introduced to things and feelings I'd never felt or known before.
I did a lot of bad things, and never did I give in. Just 'cause the thought of being vulnerable made me feel less than I am. I have never felt home till you entered my door.
The following morning was Saturday, and I woke up alone. He was probably out jogging as usual. I showered and wore a shirt of his and a pair of his shorts. As I descended down the stairs, I heard some soft music playing. He was in the kitchen cooking. I could smell the bacon and eggs. I smiled as I came down to wrap my arms around him. He turned his head slightly to kiss my forehead. Good morning, he said. You're such an early riser. He turned around to face me. Old habits are hard to break. Are you hungry? Starving. His eyes twinkled. That's what I want to hear. I helped him set the table and sat down to eat. As I helped some eggs and bacon on my plate, his phone rang. He excused himself and picked it up. He listened a moment and then he stood up angry. What the fuck? Are you fucking serious? He shouted. I stopped eating and watched as he walked around the table and up the stairs. I could hear him shouting as he disappeared into the hallway. Suddenly, my mouth felt like cotton and food was no longer interesting. I put my spoon down and took a deep breath. I heard the door upstairs close, and then Lincoln came down the stairs dressed in jeans and a black V-neck shirt. The look on his face was hard to read. I stood up and swallowed, wanting to hear the worst. Should I go? I asked. He walked to me. That was Maverick. He called me to say that someone broke into our office and left a threatening message. I frowned. What? How? I mean, I thought your office was protected. It is. But this person isn't just anyone. Who is it? His face drained of color. It's Naomi. My mouth dropped open. I should have known that. He rubbed his temples. She broke in and sprayed the words, "I'm not done," on my office wall. Nothing was taken. I sat down because my legs were about to give in. He came to me and touched my cheeks. I looked up at him and saw that the event had unfolded him into a corner as well. I shrugged my shoulders gently and touched his face. "What does she want with you? What was your relationship really like? Will you tell me?" I asked. "I'll tell you tonight. Right now I have to go to the office. Will you be here when I return?" I felt sad about the whole situation, but I knew I couldn't give up on him. I nodded slowly, and a smile spread across his face. He gave me a quick kiss before he turned to go. As soon as he was gone, the house seemed eerie, and I felt alone. I stared at the food before me and suddenly felt like vomiting. I felt sick staring at it and tossed everything out. I washed, dried, and put the dishes away. Then I sat in the large living room staring at the walls, wondering what the hell I was doing here. Lincoln had a life before me that was starting to haunt both of us. His past wasn't going to let him go, and I had run smack dab into the middle of it. What if Naomi decided drugging him, breaking into his office wasn't enough? Could she hurt him? Could she hurt me? I shut my eyes, pushing the thought away, but it came back like an unwanted rash. "Ugh, get out of here," I said.
Went down crashing in my own bed. There ain't no words when you're sleeping with shame. All out and yet still wide awake. There ain't no prayer when you're sleeping on nails. When words fail you and all that you can do is look away. Yeah, and the image in my mind is burning each other down. It's pain. If you could only say it's you, always you.
"Seriously, Ka Bao, you need to stop seeing him," Amy said as she handed me a glass of red wine. I had nowhere else to go besides her place. Amy lived near Lake Calhoun in a nice updated condo. She had decorated it with an urban taste, and it was chic and tasty, just like her. I had caught her after a run, and she was still wearing her workout clothes with her hair piled up in a high bun. "What am I supposed to do? Just cut him off and walk out?" I asked. "Why the fuck not? His crazy psycho ex is probably going to murder you in your sleep. Why the fuck would you stay?" I shrugged, and she took a long gulp of wine and she stared at me. And then something dawned on her and she put her wine glass down. She stared at me and I looked up at her. "You're in love with him, aren't you?" Amy asked quietly. I didn't answer. She shook her head. "Ka Bao! How could you allow yourself to do such a crazy thing like that? You know you just got out of a sticky situation. Why would you run into a train wreck like him head on? Haven't you learned anything from Alan?" I took a deep breath. "Look, he's not Alan, okay? Yes, I may have fallen in love with him, but it's not as if we're going to get married or anything. I happen to like how I feel around him. He makes me feel safe. Is that so bad to want after Alan?" Okay, I'll give you that, Ka Bao, but come on, this guy is a walking heart attack. I rubbed my head and let out a deep breath. My eyes caught the time on the clock on the wall. I sniffed and tucked my hair back as I stood up to go. I should head home. It was 2 in the afternoon. This morning, when I left Lincoln's home, it was 8. Amy stood up. "Tell me you'll be all right." "I'll be all right, I promise you." A little after 3, I unlocked the door to my apartment and dropped my keys and purse on the counter. On account that I'd been staying with Lincoln, my apartment needed some fresh air. I walked over to the window and opened them all, letting in the cool air. I lit a few candles around the room and walked to the bathroom where I stripped and showered. I took a long time in the shower, letting the water run down my skin, washing away the event that happened today. When I finally turned the water off, I noticed my fingers were all pruned. I reached for the towel and was drying my hair when the door to the bathroom flew open. I screamed as Lincoln walked in, just as I wrapped the towel around myself. The look on his face was dark as he entered the bathroom. I sighed of relief seeing that it was just him. I gulped down the fear that had almost flogged me. What are you doing here? I cried. I thought you said you would wait at my house, he answered. I ran a hand through my wet strands and let out a breath of disbelief. So I didn't. You can't just break in here and do you know how long I've been looking for you? Where were you? I came here hours ago and you weren't even here. Where did you go? I frowned. Wait, you were here? How did you get in? I made copies of the key. My eyes flew open with surprise and shock. I'm sorry. You did what? Where were you? I raised my hands. No. Wait. I'm still stuck on the part where you made copies of my key. He grabbed my hands and pulled me closer to him. Answer me, damn it. Where were you? I shook his hands off of me and pushed him away. I don't have to answer you, Lincoln. You have no right barging in here and demanding things of me. You don't own me. I walked around to my bedroom and into my closet where I pulled on a rope. I had just finished tying it when he spun me around and grabbed my shoulders. Ka Bao, I don't want to see you get hurt. Do you have any idea how worried I was when I came back here and you were gone? You were nowhere to be found and you turned your fucking phone off. I had no way to reach you. I was going crazy for hours thinking of God knows what, he cried. I shrugged out of his hold. I'm fine. I'm alive and I'm fine, okay? I couldn't stay at your place and just fiddle with my thumbs. I needed someone to talk to, so I went to Amy's place, okay? And you have no right to be angry. You took something from me when I never gave it to you. Just hear me out, Ka Bao. I watched as his eyes turned misty, and I realized they were tears. I let the anger in me subside long enough to listen to his side of the story. He stared at me until I nodded, and then he reached for me again. I arrived at the office and found the note she left on the wall for me. But what scared me was that she had taken a photo of you in your home and pinned it on the wall next to what she wrote. That sent chills down my spine, and I began to shake. He noticed and led me to sit on the bed where he held me. I couldn't believe I was hearing this. It seemed like I was in some sort of a bad movie. What did she want with me? I asked. I don't know, but it scared me shitless. I ran back home and you were gone. I thought the worst. I came here and you weren't here. I searched everywhere for you. I looked at him and saw the worry in his eyes. I'm sorry, Lincoln. I needed to clear my mind, so I went to see Amy. You really scared me. I hugged him and held him until I was sure he knew I was all right. Then I pulled away and looked at him. You said you would tell me about your relationship with her. He ran his hand down my back. He took a deep breath, and he began talking. I met Naomi at a cancer fundraiser. She came with a date, a man named Marcus Hale, a brilliant doctor who specialized in cancer treatment. They had been dating for several years, and he was getting ready to propose to her. That night, they were the couple everybody envied, dancing and laughing together. But as the night came to a close, Marcus had a bit too much to drink, and they began arguing. I found them in the parking lot where he slapped her up quite a bit. I should have walked away, but the gentleman in me just couldn't stand it, so I intervened. I sent her home and checked up on her from time to time. She mistook it as something more. He took a deep breath, and his hand came to hold mine. One night, she appeared at my office in a trench coat and wearing nothing underneath. She was unstable, talking crazy, and wanting me to make love to her. Marcus had left her for another woman, and she wanted me to take his spot. I refused, and she called me all names possible. I rejected her, and she made a promise that she would never let me go. And all this happened in 9 months? I asked. I had been dating other women, and each woman I dated was driven away from me because she would try to get in the way. But I wasn't in love with any of those women. I'm in love with you. And when she plans on hurting you, it's something I aim to stop. I stared at him for a long time. Has she tried to hurt you before? Not like this. But it's probably because she's never seen me like this with another woman. I don't understand. Why can't you just call the police? It won't help her. I turned her over to a top-notch therapist and she tried to commit suicide. Lincoln, am I supposed to just sit back and let her be a third wheel in our relationship? Do I have to fear that each time you utter love words to me, I'll wake up with you running after her because she's threatened to kill me? He shook his head. No, I'm not going to let her interfere any longer. I've taken measures into my own hands. I've put out a restraining order against her. She's not to be within 50 feet of us or she'll be locked up. The last few times were just women who I brushed off, but this time it's you. And I won't stand it if she wants to hurt you just to get to me. Do you really mean that? Of course I do. No, I mean the part about where you said you loved me. His eyes turned passionate, and his lips were inviting as he lowered his lids to look at mine. When he gazed back into my eyes, his breath had become unstable, and he was breathing hard. He took my hand and placed it over his chest, where I felt his heart pounding. Do you feel that? He asked. I nodded. That's the heart beating for you and only you, Ka Bao. When I'm near you, my heart races in a way that makes me ache in pleasure and pain together. I've never felt that. And it's amazing to feel. I can't give that up. I've been searching for far too long for it. Do you think I'd be foolish enough to let it slip away? I don't know, Lincoln. I'm not you. Right. You're not me. But you already have me. I inhaled a breath and wrapped my arms around him. Our lips met as he pushed me toward the bed where we fell together on it. My heart was racing as he made love to my lips. I needed this. I craved for it. I'd lived for it. He made me feel alive, safe, and gave me something I never thought possible. Hope. It was what I yearned for after the mess I'd been in. When our bodies became one, the problem before us melted away, and I could feel him inside me, filling me with love, giving me breath. It was all I needed.
Open air, side by side we sway there in all the colors.
We lay together on the bed, the sheets twisted around our legs. The fan on the ceiling was giving us some wind as it spun around. I was in his arms, his fingers trailing down my back, drawing small circles on my flesh. I could hear his heart beating against my eardrum. The room was quiet except for our breathing. I was taking this all in, and it was making me feel confident about our relationship. Perhaps I had judged too fast and didn't see this the way Lincoln did. We could make this work. Even if we had a crazy psycho ex stalking us, we could make it work. What are you thinking about? Lincoln asked. I lifted my head up to gaze at him. His eyes were bright and clear. Why do you want to know? He smiled and kissed my hair. I always want to know what you're thinking about. Call it envy. It's the only place I can't seem to reach. I cleared my throat. I wasn't thinking about anything. He laughed. Ka Bao, you're a horrible liar. A smile spread on my face. So, I'd like to keep my thoughts to myself. Do they at least involve me? I shrugged and wiggled out of his hold. I pulled on my robe and stood up. As I tied the knot around my waist, blankets covering his waist, the look on his face was priceless as he gazed at me. I smiled, liking him in my bed. He laughed and ran a hand through his hair. Darling, you can't look at me like that and expect me to not want to know what's going on in your head, he said. I'll give you that one. I was just thinking about how much I liked having you in my bed. His brows shot up. Really? Well, I like being here too. I'm gonna make dinner. I bet you're famished. I am, but it's not for food. You are a devil. I cooked dinner for us as the evening sun began to set. We ate and talked, laughing when the other one told a joke. I felt peaceful and protected. When we finished, he cleaned the dishes while I relaxed on the couch. I finally took out my phone and saw numerous missed calls from Lincoln and several text messages from him stating for me to call him. A smile came upon my face as I erased them. Then a message popped up from Alan. You're quite brave to be fucking another woman's man. My heart stilled, and I sat up. All happy thoughts disappeared from my mind. What did he mean? And then suddenly I knew. Naomi must have made contact with him. How? My throat lodged with a knot as Lincoln entered the living room. His smile faded when he saw my expression. I stood up and handed him my phone. He read the message and slowly lowered it. I'm sure he's referring to Naomi, I said. The question is how she was able to contact him. Lincoln's eyes turned cold. I'll deal with this. No, you don't know Alan. I'll talk to him. Why would I ever let you near that bastard? Don't you remember what happened last time? The encounter between Alan and me outside the law office came into mind. Yes, I remember. But I need to do this. He's just a ghost to me now. He can't hurt me. Can you find out how she was able to contact him? It's already done.
I did a lot of bad things, and never did I give in. Just 'cause the thought of being vulnerable made me feel less than I am. I have never felt home till you entered.
The park was empty as I parked my car. I saw Alan's car a few feet away. He was sitting by the bench staring at me as I got out of my car. I walked over to where he sat. Dressed in blue jeans and a light blue sweater, he looked like the man I had once thought I loved. But now, all thoughts of love containing him were gone. He had an angry look on his face as he stood up to meet me. You're late, he said. You're early, I said. He laughed. You're quite brave, you know that. Is it because you're porking someone else? How does it feel to be on the other side of the line? I bit the inside of my cheeks to stop myself from hitting him. At least I'm not married while I'm doing it, Alan, which is something you've got to learn. His eyes narrowed. You should talk. You're sleeping with someone else's man. What I do with my private life is none of your business, Alan. That's the beauty of divorce. Why do you care? Why are you even here to talk about this? Does my sex life mean that much to you? He pointed a finger at me. It does when this woman threatens to go public and ruin my reputation. I laughed. Ruin your reputation. Alan, you did that yourself when you decided to fuck someone else besides your wife. He stepped forward. You better wash your mouth. I don't have to. I don't have to answer to you anymore. And while you may believe what this deranged woman has to say, know that the truth is deeper than what she says. I don't care about it. I learned a lot when you decided to put me out. I've grown stronger now, and I'm not afraid of you. I'm free of you, Alan. I can do what I please, and I can fuck who I please. The look on his face was pure horror as I turned and walked away back to my car. When I got in and started it, he was still standing where I left him. Good, I thought as I drove off. Let him be stunned for once. When I returned home, Lincoln wasn't there. I knew he was probably at the office. He told me to work from home today while he figured out a few things about Naomi. I decided to cook some lunch while I was waiting for him to return. I took out some beef, carrots, and potatoes. Roast beef was on my mind. The beef was still in my hands when I saw something flicker from the corner of my eyes. I turned around, and there stood Naomi, dressed in a sheer white nightgown with her hair down and sleek. She looked frighteningly thin as she stared at me. The beef from my hand fell as I swallowed hard. In her hand was a gun, and she had it pointed straight at me. My breath became heavy as she began walking toward me. I knew he was in love with you, Naomi said. I knew it the moment I set eyes on him at the charity event that night. The way he held you when he danced with you, it was perfect. It was how I always wanted him to hold me. Naomi, put the gun down, I said. Shut the fuck up, she growled. I almost jumped back. This isn't what you want. Do you truly think that if you killed me, Lincoln would love you? He'd hate you. She began to cry. big tears rolling down her cheeks. I don't give a shit whether you live or die. All I care about is that Lincoln will return to me. He loved me for 9 months. Me. And then suddenly you come and he's turned all attention to you. What the fuck do you have that I don't? Jesus, she was seriously crazy. I swallowed and found my throat had gone dry. She was shaking, and I was afraid she'd accidentally pulled the trigger. Sweat began to form, and I found my heart was racing, pounding against my ribcage, loud in my eardrums. Shit, I had nowhere to run. You've got nowhere to go, she said as she read my mind. If you want Lincoln that much, I'll leave. I'll give him to you. Just leave me alone. She threw her head back and laughed. You're really funny, Ka Bao. You know what? Why would he want me when you're still here? Shit, I knew her plan. Kill me, and in the mourning process, she'd take over my place. Fear slammed hard in my body, and I felt my legs begin to tremble. Take control, Ka Bao. I sighed deeply and narrowed my eyes on her. You think he'd want you if you killed me? Do you honestly think he'll let you take my place? He'd never want you again. Naomi sobbed. Yes, he will, because I'll say that I tried to stop you from killing yourself. You don't understand. I love them with all of my heart. But he doesn't love you. Shouldn't love be equal? He does love me. He's just blinded by you, you fucking bitch. The door opened and Lincoln walked in. In an instant, Naomi turned the gun on him. He walked in and closed the door, his eyes gazing into hers, and then he shifted his gaze to me. When he saw that I wasn't hurt, he returned his stare to her. She was shaking now, and tears were dripping down her chin. Naomi, he said. Lincoln, I love you. Why do you have to do this to me? What does she have that I don't? She cried. He began walking toward her. She wasn't backing down, and fear was pounding in my heart. Naomi, give me the gun. She jumped back. No! He stopped. You don't want to do this. Yes, I fucking do. She's the reason why you're not with me. If I put her out of her misery, you'll come to me. I know you will. Tell her about us, Lincoln. Tell her you love me. No one can love you like I love you. Tears filled my eyes as I watched their encounter with each other. Naomi was shaking her head as both hands now gripped the gun. She held her stance in place as Lincoln moved toward her slowly. You know what it was like between us, Naomi. But if you even touch Ka Bao, I'll never forgive you, he said. Sobbing, she replied, I love you, Lincoln. I've never loved anyone like I love you. How can you just leave me like this? Don't do this to yourself. She sobbed, and then suddenly she stopped and eyed me. And then her eyes moved back to Lincoln. Fine, if that's how you want it. She turned the gun on herself and fired a shot. I screamed when the trigger went off. I covered my ears as Lincoln rushed toward her and caught her just before her body hit the floor. Sobbing, I rushed to my phone and dialed the police. When I ended the call, I turned to find Lincoln holding her as she gasped for breath. She'd shot herself in the heart and was bleeding profusely on my kitchen floor. I love you, she gasped. Lincoln touched her cheek. Naomi? Why? It took her a moment to answer. I love you. If I can't have you, then I'd rather not live. I can't watch you love someone else when knowing your love is so much to live for. You'll never know how much I could give you. Love isn't a one-way street, Naomi. If I let you into my life, it would be a lie. I'd be telling you lies when I said I loved you. You'd be unhappy because my heart would hold someone else. No one on earth deserves to be second best, no matter who they are. She smiled softly as a trickle of blood seeped from the corner of her lips. I know. That is why I love you so much. She gasped in pain, and then suddenly Her eyes turned cold, and she stopped breathing. Lincoln lowered his head and ran his fingers over her lids to close them. I stood there watching as I heard the sirens in the background.
I know that we would never work. I know that someone would get hurt. I think I have to let you go. Should be easy, but it's not. 'Cause the problem is I love you.
It had been a little over a week since Naomi died, and our life had gone back to normal. There were days where I still think about her as she lay there dying in my kitchen. I thought about what she went through and how she must have felt as she pulled the trigger. Lincoln had moved past it, and he'd not talked about it since it happened. I don't want to talk about it because I know he doesn't want to hear it. I know that somewhere deep inside he blamed himself for what happened. If only he hadn't been so caring, she would not have developed feelings for him. But it wasn't his fault. Naomi wasn't well. There was nothing he could do. It was a Sunday evening, and we were lying in bed together after making love. I felt him close to me, and that was all I needed. I knew that the tomorrow that were to come would always bring a challenge, but with him beside me, it was almost as if I wasn't afraid to face them. I hadn't heard from Alan since our last encounter. I received the money from him a few days ago. For once, my life was quiet and peaceful. It was almost surreal that it's this way, after being whipped in a tornado for so long. It was almost hard to even imagine what a quaint life would be like. But as long as I had Lincoln, I knew quaint was enough for me. On my finger was a sparkling 3-carat diamond ring. He proposed. I said yes, and suddenly a wedding is being planned. It's funny how fast life can move and how slow time can tick at times. But I know for sure that no matter where I am or what the future brought, being Mrs. Lincoln Spencer was my one dream come true. Thank you so much for tuning in to the story of Saccharine. I hope that you all enjoyed it. I will catch you in the next episode.
I did a lot of bad things, and never did I give in. Just 'cause the thought of being vulnerable made me feel less than I am. I have never felt home till you entered